Hello eye tracking community, my name is Michael and in this video we will talk about how artificial intelligence will support your area of interest annotation process. If you're interested in a music video about annotation of area of interest supported by AI, please have a look at this video. In this tutorial we will explain how we made these annotations shown in this music video. There are three examples. One from an experiment where a pedestrian walked around in a park. The second example is the annotation of objects in a car experiment. And in the third example, I will show you the annotation of areas of interest in a usability experiment. On the screen, we can see the first example. A pedestrian is walking around in a park and is looking at objects in this park. Now I want to annotate these areas here, or these objects with areas of interest. We can see the current situation at frame number 100 of this complete recording. On the top here, in this timeline, we can see the complete experiment, starting at frame number 0 and going to frame number around 900. Also in this timeline, we can see a section starting at frame number 100 and going to frame around number 700. And here on the second timeline, we can see now only this section in more detail. This is my current moment in time, so that's where we are in the video. On the right side in the panel, we have the gaze X and gaze Y coordinate as always to be matched on the areas of interest. And we have some shapes here which we can use for drawing the areas of interest, and many more parameters we can set. I will describe them in later tutorials. For covering now these objects with areas of interest, I will choose a polygon tool and I will draw now my polygon area of interest around this object here. So the area of interest number 1 should look like this. To stop the drawing of this polygon, I press the key Escape on the keyboard. So now here on the upper timeline, Blickshift now created a marker for me. That's where the definition of, or the annotation of the AOI should start. I go now into the experiment. So I go fast forward, perhaps to somewhere like here. And then I readjust the area of interest to something like that. Blickshift now connected these two moments in time, or these two definitions of areas of the same area of interest by this line here and by this dashed line in the detail view. And I want to use now the automatic object tracking to detect this object in between these two markers. So I go back to the start. So I click here on this marker with a left click. And here I click then on the area of interest. I say succeeding range. The standard is a linear interpolation, but I want to use now the AI component in our software. So that's very easy. I just activate object tracking. And now the Dynamic AOI Editor is using artificial intelligence to track my area of interest number 1 here through the video. So it takes some information from the first frame and goes over all the other frames until the last frame where I said, okay, here I want to stop my annotation, and is doing all the annotation automatically for me. So now let's have a look at the results. So I go through the video. So the AOI is dancing a bit, but it's covering my area of interest automatically for me. This is an amazing component which will save a lot of time for you. And this is now what I can do, or I can use this procedure also for the other objects as well. And this is what you can see in the music video. On the screen, we can see the second example, a car experiment. And a driver is approaching a traffic light. So here it comes into the field of view and the car stops here. And now I want to annotate this traffic light. So I'm using the rectangle shape here. Draw my area of interest. And then I go back in time to the first moment where I think the traffic light appears in the field of view of the driver. So perhaps, let's say, somewhere here. I'm moving the area of interest to there. And as we know from the example before, Blickshift Analytics is doing now a linear interpolation at first. So let's check the results. Yeah, and we quickly can see here this does not really work. In a car experiment, the reason most times is because of the perspective of the car driver. So this is a good example to use the artificial intelligence component. I go now to the marker. So I click here on the marker where the area of interest has been defined for the first time. Make a left click. The film now automatically jumps to this moment in time. And from here, I make now a right click on the area of interest, say now succeeding range. So now we are going into the future, and I say object tracking. The Dynamic AOI Editor is working. And now we can see the result. I click somewhere else so that I do not have these markers around the area of interest, so that we can see the area of interest better. And then I go into the experiment, and this area of interest really now is covering the traffic light. This is amazing. If you do not want to read the area of interest names here, you can deactivate them here on the right side. And then let's go back here, do once again, and now you can really see the traffic light as it is covered by the area of interest. Finally, on the screen, we can see the usability experiment. There are two main parts which have to be annotated in this experiment. Here we can see the head-mounted perspective of the participant. We can see a table. On the left side we have the instructions. On the right side we have a sheet of paper, and the task in this experiment was to graft paper planes as described here in the instructions. So let's annotate now the instructions. I go to the rectangle shape here. I am drawing, like in the examples before, an area of interest around the instructions. And then I go forward in time. Let's say until here. I am readjusting the areas of interest. And then I'm starting the AI component. So I go to preceding range because we go now backwards in time. They say object tracking. The AI component is working. And I can continue my work from here and can have a look at what is happening here next. Okay, so annotation is done. And when I go now through the experiment, I can nicely see how the AI component has detected my instructions. Very nice. So I go now a bit more into the experiment, and the next moment where I want to create a keyframe is perhaps here. I say right-click preceding object tracking. We will speed up here now a bit. So we're slowing down now. Here comes an interesting point now. The participant is changing the pages. And in between, I don't want to define areas of interest. This means this area of interest is still selected. So I took it into the future, so you can say. And now we have the second page of the instructions. But from here backwards until the next keyframe here, I don't want to have an annotation. This goes like that. I click here on the area of interest, make a right click, say preceding and say no interpolation. We can see that here in between there's now no interpolation. And then I go forward in time like I did it before. So until here. And then I'm saying preceding range object tracking. And now we will speed up again. Slowing down, I go back to the beginning of the experiment. Let's have a look on the results. Area of interest here on the left side on the instruction pages. We're half a minute in the experiment. 1 minute, area of interest is disappeared, comes back, disappears, comes back, is on the top left where we have the instructions. We change the pages, it's still there, changing the size. It disappears for a moment, it comes back, always covering the current instructions. Here, okay. So here something went wrong. You can just readjust the areas of interest everywhere if the computer vision is doing something not correctly. I'm grabbing the area of interest. I tell the software the area of interest is now here on the top left. So not the table is the area of interest, but only the sheet of paper here. And then the software is reworking the areas of interest and recalculates then the bounding box. And here we are. We have now an additional keyframe in the middle. So let's go now back, have a look at the instructions. I'm readjusting again, saying no, the instructions are here on the top left. It's recalculating. So we are inserting another keyframe. So let's have a look now here at the end, going back, the area of interest to the top left. And now it looks like how I wanted to have it. A great result, and it saved me a lot of time and stress. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like this tutorial, please press the like button, subscribe to our channel, activate the bell so that you'll never miss a new tutorial on this channel. And I'm looking forward to see you in the next video.